we're here with James. How are you today?
Oh, I'm excellent. Thank you, Jenny. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I love the hat. Don't trip. That's like really hard to do though, right?
Oh, it is. That's I think why I bought the hat is I wish I could trip less.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder.
Yeah, you need to look at yourself like 100 times a day in the mirror and just read it.
Like,
Don't trip, don't trip, don't trip, don't trip. I probably said that like 100 times over this weekend to myself in one way or another.
just relax. Just let things happen.
Yeah. So you have an amazing company that I want to talk about. Hear how it started, hear the whole story. So first off, what is it called?
Serene Waters Adventure Therapy.
Nice. Just the name alone, you know it's something really cool. So this is recovery based, or is it for everybody?
So I have two components to the business. The adventure therapy side is for people in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also have a surf school. So we serve
Okay.
both communities.
Nice. So the recovery side, I take it you're in recovery then?
Yes.
Okay. How long you been sober for?
So I got sober in January 4th, 2008.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. I was 18 when I got sober, actually.
Oh, wow. You got sober really young.
Yeah.
So where did you get sober at? Are you from here, Orange County, or where are you from?
So I grew up all over Southern California, mainly spent most of my life in the Coachella Valley.
Okay.
Lived in LA County for a little bit and then came out here in high school.
Okay.
Got sober in Palm Desert.
Okay. So you're used to being hot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you like it hot?
I do. Honestly,
do.
I do. And I moved, which is a whole nother story. I moved to Central California, and to me, it's like freezing up there on the coast.
Yeah. Compared to like 100, 115, huh?
Yeah.
What's like your favorite temperature? Like if it could just stay this temperature year round, I'd be good.
September and October in Southern California. That's my favorite time of year.
It's like 70, 75, right? It's been really hot though lately. My mom's in town from Canada and she's just like loving it because we live down at the beach, but it's still been like 75, 80 degrees every day. So nice. So let's go back. So how was your childhood? Did you have a good childhood?
Oh, that's a pretty interesting question. Hence a lot of the moving around. So, growing up, I would say I had a good childhood in the sense I was always provided for. I grew up in Southern California, so I had got to do a lot of really fun stuff, but pretty unstable.
Was your mom and dad both in the picture?
Yes. So my dad was in my life. I grew up with my mom and my stepdad, and I would go back and forth every other weekend. So I lived in Palm Desert, California when I was like 5 years old. And at some point, my dad moved to LA County. So I would go from Palm Desert to LA County like every other week for a lot of my childhood.
Yeah. And did that just seem like normal to you, or how'd you feel doing that all the time?
It felt normal because that was my only experience.
Mm-hmm.
So as a young kid, I always had that like excitement, like I'm going with my dad,
Yeah. Well, that's cool then.
Yeah.
I'm split up from my ex-husband. We have a child together, and I always and this is probably, I'm sure a lot of parents actually feel this, but I'll speak for myself. I always felt like this guilt, he's got to be like shuffled around. I wonder how this is going to affect him. So yeah, I can see it from the parent standpoint. Do you have any kids now?
I do. Yeah. I have a daughter named Lauren. She's 15.
Oh, so I have a son that's 15.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
Very cool.
Fun age.
Yeah, it's a great age sometimes. Yeah. You never know what you're going to get. My son is either like complete sweetheart or just like this morning, for example. My son is like super entitled. He doesn't watch these, so I can go ahead and say this. He wouldn't care probably anyways, but I don't know where he gets this from, but we moved across from the high school for him to go to high school, right? And so this morning he was like, hey, I really think you should like plan your mornings around, dropping me off at school. And I thought it was a joke, and I was like, you cannot be being serious right now. We like live across from the school. Like you could walk. He's like, well, you could just like plan your mornings that you go out either before and then drop me off, or you just wait and then go out after. I go, no. You're almost 16. You could figure it out, like have some independence, because yeah, it's a fun age. It's a fun age.
Yeah, that's funny because like my daughter all of a sudden, like, she's 15 and she's like an expert at all this life stuff, all the
Oh, of
so she
course.
thinks like, let me tell you, Dad, this is how this is and that's how that is. And I
Uh-huh.
just smile and nod.
Yeah, you're like, sure, yeah. But we were the same way at that age, right?
Oh, I knew it all.
Yeah. So your childhood was decent. So, what happened that you started using drugs and alcohol? Was it a slow progression, or when did that start?
So I'll kind of back up. So like growing up, when I would go back and forth every other weekend, so like drugs and alcohol were always a part of my family's life.
Okay.
I joke, but I'm serious about, like, in my family, you're either in recovery, probably should be in recovery, or you're in Al-Anon or should be in Al-Anon. Those are
Okay.
like your 4 options.
Got it. I can see it. Yeah.
So growing up, like, it was the 90s, so the DARE program was huge. And in school, they would teach us that, like, drugs are bad. And, you don't even know what drugs are, but you're like, those are bad. And
Yeah.
then I found out, like, oh, my parents do drugs. Like, my parents smoke pot, and they drink beer.
Yeah.
And eventually what ended up happening was, as the disease progresses in all of us, with my stepdad and my mom, his addiction and alcoholism got so bad to the point where she packed us up. I was 12 years old. I remember I was in middle school. Someone from the office came and grabbed me and said, oh, your mom's having car problems. So you need to stand here and she's going to pick you up, which I didn't know at the time, but now that's the cover story.
Oh.
When my mom showed up, she had my half brother and half sister in the car. They were like 4 or 5. Everyone was crying. She had all her things in the car and she's like, you need to get in. We're leaving.
Oh. Just like that. And where'd you guys go?
We came here to Orange County, stayed in a hotel. I remember that pretty vividly because I was 12. My younger siblings, I don't think they remember.
Yeah.
And then we ended up moving back to, my mom moved back to the desert. Her husband, my stepdad, he was like, you can have the house, just come back and live with the kids here. After my mom like tried to make it work in Lake Forest, working as a nurse, taking care of us by herself. It was a lot.
Yeah. So the kids, the 2 younger ones, that was their dad.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
And in that process, what happened was my dad, who was, very involved in my life, and my stepmom, they didn't want me going back to that situation. So I remember, like, it was nighttime. My dad showed up. My mom and him took me out on the street somewhere, and they're just like, you're coming with us. Like, you're going to come live with us. And I remember not wanting to go. It's not that I didn't like my dad. It's not that I didn't love my stepmom and my dad in their house. I didn't want to leave my mom.
Yeah. And so did you leave? Did you have to leave?
Yeah. So I went and moved to Calabasas, North LA County. So I'm sure you could put yourself in my shoes at 12 years old, going from Palm Desert to Orange County to Calabasas. That's like culture shock alone.
Yeah. Big time. Yeah.
Let alone being in adolescence through it. So I think I really shut down then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could definitely see how that would happen for sure. It just hurts too much. You have to just protect yourself, right? Did you see your mom often or?
Yeah, so the situation stayed the same, where it was just like the reverse, where I would start going back to the desert and visiting my mom and my younger siblings. And her and her husband, my stepdad at the time, like they were split for good at that point. So my mom was a nurse. So she had 3 kids and, she like did her best, man.
Yeah.
I don't know how she did it. I look back now and I'm just like, I don't know if I could have done it.
Right? Because in being a nurse, aren't you on for like 12 hours a day when you're on? Isn't it something like that too? Just crazy hours?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot. How is your relationship with your mom now?
It's good. It's awesome. She's living in the Bay Area now, working as a nurse at Stanford. So we don't see each other as much, but like we all went to Disneyland on Thanksgiving Day.
Oh, we did? Was it busy?
Yes and no.
Okay.
It wasn't like special that it was empty. It was kind of crowded, but then around 8 or 9 p.m., the park just emptied.
Oh, nice. Nice. And how was your relationship with your dad?
My relationship with my dad is good. We've had some struggles, throughout our, I guess you could say, like my adult relationship with him, but like we make it work. We see each other. We try to spend time together.
Yeah.
We've come together and made amends several times. And had one recently in the past few years that I think helped, and so, we do our best to just like respect each other and hang out and bond. And I just went to my grandpa's house last night, and he had his new girlfriend there. So we all hang out and, shoot the shit. Everybody's like sane. Nobody's fist fighting or belligerently drunk or yelling.
Yeah. So when you were 12 and made that move, and you said that's kind of when you shut down, is that when you started experimenting or?
So it was funny. I remember they took me to a therapist, like my stepmom and my dad, and it was this older lady. To me, it seemed like she was really old. I don't know. She was probably like 50 or 60.
Yeah.
And it was weird. I felt like I was sitting all the way across the room, like I was like a subject to be studied. I just remember staring at my feet, like I did not know why I was there. Like I couldn't understand what was going on.
Yeah. Did you feel defiant or just not understanding?
Not understanding. I was like silent for most of the hour. It felt like 10 hours at that age.
Yeah. And did you keep going back or?
Eventually we stopped. I found friends. And I just never really talked about those feelings. I didn't even know I had them, to be honest, at that time. And what I did find was drugs and alcohol. Like that next summer, one of my uncles, I was staying over at his house. My grandparents were gone. And, that was the first time I smoked weed. I remember we hotboxed a car. I drank, 2 beers earlier that night. And at like 13 years old, I was already tipsy. And then, smoked weed for the first time, laughed hysterically. And it just opened up that other doorway of like, wow, I can't believe this made me feel this good. Like I remember passing out, waking up the next morning, feeling really pissed off that like that feeling was gone. Like I was like, what is this secret? That's what I felt like. Everyone had this secret world they were hiding from me. And I understood at that point, like why people smoke and drink.
And was that all you did, or did you get into heavier drugs too?
At that time, it was just experimentation. So I went back home after that and made that my mission. I was just like, how can we get more weed? How can we get alcohol? Stealing from kids' parents' liquor cabinet. Just really small stuff. And eventually it did progress, progressed into meth, Xanax, weed, alcohol, anything I could get my hands on, basically.
Yeah. And did your dad and stepmom or your mom know what was going on? Could they see, any red flags with you?
Yeah, like I remember the first time I got suspended from school. I bought weed from this girl. We were such like busters, apparently we did it right outside of the like school counselor's window. We got totally busted.
That's funny.
So they knew something was wrong. I was already getting in trouble for drugs and alcohol. And around that time, my dad had made a trip or two into rehab. And eventually his wife just couldn't do it anymore. So, and we, split up as a family up there. I was about 14. 14 years old. And I remember my dad came home with like a 12-pack in his hand of Coors Light, and we were getting ready to move across town to this apartment, and I had my best friend with me, who we were, partners in crime. And I don't know if this is how it went down, but it's how I remember it. My dad was like, I don't care what you do. Don't get caught. Do it in the house. Just keep it under wraps.
Yeah. And so that's what you did.
Yeah, it was on. It was like, oh, green light. That summer was interesting. The summer before high school.
Yeah. And so when he went to treatment, did you think, okay, maybe I should stop too? Or what were your thoughts back then when he would go to treatment?
I still didn't understand, at 13, because he could like really hold it together. He would smoke a lot.
Functioning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then his binge drinking and other substances is what would take him off the rails. So I didn't quite understand because it wasn't in my face 24/7. It was very hidden behind the scenes.
Yeah. Yeah. So when did you realize like, hey, this is a problem?
For me, well, that's funny. For so long, I thought it was everyone else's problem. So as I moved back with my mom, I found the same group of friends in different schools and found the same problems, getting kicked out of schools and getting a probation officer. And they told me I had a drug testing, or I was going to report for drug testing and go to these drug and alcohol awareness classes, and that he was going to check up on me. And I thought, I don't have a drug problem. I have a drug testing problem.
Right. Of course you would think that.
And even what I learned in some of those classes, it certainly didn't change my mind or make me see the light, but I think it did plant that seed, because they would have panels from 12-step community come in and, people tell their stories, and they would ask the class, they would ask us about recovery, like, how many of you have not used in like all week? And like some of the kids would raise their hands, and I was friends with these kids. So I knew that some of them really weren't drinking and using, and that I was ditching school every day and getting high. And I was one of the only people in the room that was like, of course I would raise my hand. Oh, I've been clean for a week or two or whatever. And I was high in that moment. And someone said that, one of the people running the class or speaking to us was like, if you're lying about the last time you got high, that's a sign of addiction. It's like, kind of like.
Yeah. It was starting to register that there was something going on. So when you were drinking and using all the time, obviously you were trying to escape, right? And not feel things. I mean, were you aware that that's what you were doing? Like when you got to be, let's say 16, 17 years old, I mean, did you have any coping skills, or was that just like your thing that you would go to, just drugs and alcohol, numb it out, not feel?
Yeah, it was pretty much a constant numbing. So I didn't really feel like I had these feelings I needed to get away from. It was just this constant thing. In retrospect, I see that's what it was, but still couldn't register that.
So you got sober really young. You were 18, you said?
Yes, 18.
18, and you stayed sober from 18. Well, congratulations on that, number one. I've worked in treatment for years, and when I see the youngsters come in, even up to like 25, I'm like, wow, good for you, that you're doing this so young, because it's got to be so hard at that age, because people are, going to get to be legal age and want to go to the bars and all of that. So congratulations on doing that at such a young age. So what made you go to treatment or get sober? Did you go to treatment at 18, or what was the final thing?
So there was I'll fast forward through that. There was like 5 trips to juvenile hall, 2 trips to jail, a couple attempts at rehab. And one of the final straws, I guess, was not jail, but when my kid's mom at the time was like pregnant, and because of my using and my behavior around that, like she was just like, I'm done. Like she left, she went home to her parents' house. And I'd had this awakening of like, wow, you're about to have a kid, and like, you're pretty fucked up right now.
Yeah.
Living at your mom's house, you're running around Indio, California, stealing, collecting cans, doing all kinds of stuff just to get meth and just living that life. I just kind of saw that, like, I don't want to say I saw that was my future, but I knew I wanted something different for my kid.
Yeah. How old were you when you had your daughter?
So I got sober 2 months before my 19th birthday. My daughter was born like right before my 19th birthday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So newly sober, and you're a father.
Yes. I have a picture of me. I think I was 30 or 60 days sober, and I'm 18 years old holding a baby.
Oh, we'll have to use that picture if you could share it.
Yeah.
How did you get through that time sober? How'd you manage?
So I had a lot of support from the 12-step community.
Okay, so that's what you did. You got sober the last time you went. Did you go to treatment that last time?
No, I did not. The last time I just went to Alcoholics Anonymous, 12-step groups.
Yeah, and that did it for you.
Yeah.
So what was it like when you were newly sober as a dad?
It was gnarly. So like I said, because of my behavior with drugs and alcohol and in my relationship, my kid's mom was just done. Like there was no amends that was going to correct the behavior, the cheating, the breaking up with her, the thinking that like getting away from her and this kid and going and getting high was going to like be my way out.
Yeah.
And she felt how she felt about it. So there was no like amends that led us to like the happy, joyous, and free family. As much as I tried, believe me, I tried hard for a long time.
Yeah.
And I guess like what that was like was, it was intense. Like, got a lot of support from the people in the fellowship. Would go out to Orange County to like have supervised visitations with my daughter.
Okay.
Got a lot of help from my mom, filing court paperwork. I wasn't on the birth certificate, so I had to like go establish paternity and go through that whole experience. And
wow.
I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Yeah. Sounds extremely stressful at a young age.
Yes.
What would you say to people that are going through that right now? Because I'm sure there's listeners going, oh man, I'm in that situation. I don't know how to do this. I feel overwhelmed.
I would say like hang in there, because as I was going through it, it's not that I wanted to walk out on my kid, but I kind of had judgment towards people that did walk out on their kids. And then I kind of got a little bit of empathy for like, I see why some people give up, because it gets hard.
Yeah.
So I would just say, don't give up. It's going to be hard. Like lean into that difficult time, and it's not going to be that way forever. But there will be some pain for a while.
Yeah. And just really taking it one day at a time, as they like to say. It's so true. Because if you're like trying to look at the past, which you should never do like that, or tripping on the future, it's just a scary, dangerous place to be. I went through a custody battle with my son for a few years back. And yeah, same thing. It was so stressful. And at times it was like, man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go through with this. And am I going to stay sober? And, am I going to lose my son? And I persevered. But yeah, it's consistency, showing up every day for ourselves and others, and, doing a program, solid program. And so AA worked for you. So someone that doesn't understand really what like a support group is, or AA, like what were the main things that gave you in that time that you needed?
So Alcoholics Anonymous, it definitely gave me that place of like, in the beginning, it was all about meetings and the fellowship. I did do step work, but it was like that community that was like behind me and supported me a lot, and having different mentors. It really like, I want to say be on my side. Like I have, I've had many sponsors and mentors, but one in particular that through that court process was just like right there with me. Like, I know this sucks, but you show up and you file the paperwork and you go again the next time.
It just shows like having the right people in your corner is such a world of difference. And I keep saying especially, but it is especially at that young age. Not having that is like, it's so hard to stay sober, if all your friends are, young, out there doing stuff, drinking, you know what I mean? It'd be really hard to maintain that sober life. What do you say to people that, are young and just getting sober and their friends are going out drinking and partying? Like, what would you tell them?
For people that like kind of have that feeling of like the party's over.
Yeah.
Like this sucks.
Yeah.
I've had more fun in recovery than I've ever had getting loaded. And I don't mean I've felt better. I mean, getting loaded give me those good feelings, but I mean like real fun.
Yep. Agreed.
like lasting fun.
That you remember, that you're present for.
Yeah. And I don't want to say that, what's that old saying of like, my worst day sober is better than my best day drunk. I don't necessarily find that to be true, because there were some great days, but
yeah.
As far as like having real authentic experiences, that's what sobriety has given me. So I would say like look for those. And I think the idea of what fun is for me changed. Before it was like, how can I go out and just get completely trashed and not feel? And that was fun to me. And I didn't care who was around me. And over time, it was just like, I remember my first young people's conference. So,
oh, okay. Yeah. How was that?
So at the time I had just gotten sober. I was about a year sober, living in Palm Desert, and it was in Orange County, California. It was 2009. So my mom dropped me off, I think, at the train station. This is how excited I was. I went to the train station because I couldn't wait for other people in the program that were coming from the area. Like, I wanted to go say this.
Yeah.
Rode the train out here and stayed. I want to say, I can't remember what hotel I was at. It was at one of the big ones in Costa Mesa or maybe Anaheim. And I think I drank like 12 Monsters that weekend. Gosh, I felt so sick.
Yeah. But you had fun.
It was so fun.
Yeah. I say the same thing, and that's something I always preach on here, and just the Recover Out Loud platform is that, you can have so much fun in recovery. And like, people need to hear that, young and old, because a lot of people do think, and that was my case, my story was that I got sober and thought, what the fuck am I going to do with my life? I'm never going to have fun again. How am I going to meet cool people that are in recovery? Who am I? What do I like to do? What are my hobbies? Like, it was all these things, and it was terrifying. But being able to have people around me and being able to explore what recovery looked like for me, like, it's beyond my wildest dreams. And I have fun so much, the things that I'm able to do, these activities that I wouldn't have been able to do in my addiction, things that I wouldn't have been able to explore and learn about myself that I enjoy. And so I love your company, Serene Waters, because you're able to show people like, hey, these are different things you can do that are fun and have these adventures. So when did that become a concept, an idea in your head that you wanted to do this?
So that's a good question. I don't know when the idea came to my mind. I after I got sober, I went to school. When I moved out here to Orange County, one of my mentors was like, I was really struggling financially, and he was like, look, when we're, sober, we go to college, or maybe we learn a trade. Just giving me ideas, not telling me what I had to do, just like giving me some inspiration. And so I signed up for the drug and alcohol counseling courses at Saddleback College, and went through that, and wasn't sure how that was going to go, and took that one piece at a time. And all of a sudden, like 2 years went by, and I finished the program.
I did the same thing at Cypress, though. But yeah, I know the program. It's very cool.
And I worked in treatment for a while, and like the whole time that I moved out here in 2009, after I was sober for just over a year, surfing was always a big part of my life. And looking back in school, I always had like a hard time focusing. I don't, want to like claim a diagnosis I don't have, but I'm pretty sure I had ADHD or still do.
So yeah.
And I was the kid that just looked at books when we were supposed to be reading and just stared into space. Like I have no idea where we're at. So school and work as an adult was kind of a lot like that. Like it was very boring. It wasn't engaging. I got hired at a treatment center to be a case manager and a surf therapist.
Okay, nice. Surf therapist.
Yeah.
So explain to everybody what that means to be a surf therapist.
So in the context that I'm explaining it, it's basically, you're providing surfing as a recreational or therapeutic outlet for people. It could be people in recovery or people going through other things. But mainly what it is you're providing like a container for them that's like instructional, but also therapeutic, bringing in the mindfulness piece. That's at least how I see it.
I love that. Surf therapist. So the company, so how did it become?
So I was working at this treatment center. They were really supportive in training me as a counselor and letting me do surf therapy. That was one of the groups I did amongst many. And then I just hit that point where I'd kind of climbed the ladder as far as I was going to go as a counselor or case manager, unless you want to go into management and keep going that route, which is for some people. But for me, my passion was being outside. And my mentor at the time was just like, I think you've already, hit the ceiling with that. Why don't you take risks and go after your dreams? He encouraged me to do that. And
Good
so
mentor.
that's where it started.
Yeah. And so it started off small, obviously, and you just grew it over time. And what are the different adventures that you do with people in recovery?
So the main focus of it is surf therapy. So we'll take people out surfing. So it's like a 2-hour group. The clients will meet us at the beach. And then we'll run like a check-in and a meditation and run a surf class around it, and then actually go surf. And then after, have some like very light processing around it.
Yeah.
So that's the main one.
Okay.
It did grow into like we do hiking. Sometimes we'll do indoor rock climbing. We did do some kayaking and paddle boarding. But the main focus is surfing. But we do understand like not everyone's ready for that. Like people coming into recovery are in all different stages of their life. And maybe someone in their late 50s that's had 2 back surgeries. Surfing may not be their thing. So,
but I think even just like going and watching and experiencing, the energy of that would be good too. Do they ever come out, the ones that don't want to surf but just want to be down on the sand and watch?
Yeah, that's what it is for the people that aren't able to, or maybe they're not ready yet, of just having a blue mind experience. So that's like a whole nother psychology that's tied in with the surf therapy, or anybody who's just, like you said, being on the water, in the water, near the water. It does provide a grounding experience. Yeah,
blue mind. What does that mean?
So I don't know if I can really break it down as articulate as the guy who coined the term.
Okay, that's okay.
But he has a book out there,
Okay.
and it's called Blue Mind, and
Okay.
that's exactly what it is. He studied the psychology attached to like what happens to people when they spend time in the water, on the water, or around the water, and like the healing benefit that it has for people.
It's huge. So I go to the beach every single day. And I don't actually get in the water, but it is so therapeutic. I intentionally moved less than a mile from the beach, to be able to go down. And I go down in the mornings before I start my day. So like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, I have my little dog and I'll go down there, sometimes by myself, sometimes with somebody else. And just walking along the sand and listening to the sound of the waves. It doesn't matter what's going on in my life. When I'm in that moment, everything is clear. I'm light, I'm thinking my thoughts, and I always feel better. I always feel lighter as soon as I leave the beach. And I'm just in so much gratitude. Like things don't seem as heavy or as big, after I have that experience every day. Like I go to sleep every night to a sound machine, and it's the waves. Because even if I don't feel well physically, like I'm coming down with something, of course, if I'm going to get sick, I'm going to get sick, but I'll go down to the beach and I'll instantly feel better. So is that Blue Mind? Is that what he's talking about?
That's exactly what it is. And in his book and his work, he even talks about like maybe you're in a place where you can't go to a beach, but like being by a stream or even a pool or even creating a space in your office where you have like that little waterfall or that fountain. All those things. So
yeah. What do you see the clients take from it the most? Like if they were to write a testimony, what would you say that they would say?
So I would go with two experiences. Clients sometimes are in the camp of like they want to do it, they're so excited, and they get out and they're like, oh my gosh, this is like the most fun I've had sober. It's the most fun I've had in a long time. Mm-hmm. And maybe they're getting back into surfing or they're learning and they're just like super stoked and happy. And then in the other camp, I have the people who are so terrified and so scared because there's like a deep fear around getting in the ocean.
That's why I don't do it. I have that fear. If it's like if you go to Hawaii and you can see like 80 feet down, then I'm cool, but not being able to see under my feet. So yeah, I get that. Okay, sorry, go on.
That's okay. So you can't see, so it's fear of the unknown.
Fear of the unknown, yeah.
So a lot of times when people are in that space and they're willing to try it, because I don't like forcing anyone. When people are ready, they're ready. When they're not, they're not. But I like to invite the people that are in that camp to maybe we just start slow. Maybe we can go with you and work one-on-one and start, where it's shallow. And also using it as a tool for empowerment. So if I'm afraid to face this one fear in my life, we could use that as a metaphor for there's a lot of other fears we have out there in relationships, in business, in life, that we're afraid to face. So when we can coach someone through that fear and get them out in the water and get them to have a new experience, and even if they don't love it, when they're just like, okay, I did it though. I faced my fear and I'm glad that I tried it. Using that as a tool for like, how can we apply that to other areas in my life?
Absolutely. And I would love to surf. Like when I go walking every single day, I'm watching the surfers and I'm envious. Like, man, I want to be out there doing what they're doing. But, and it's interesting because I have like pushed through the fear, with a lot of other things in my life. I've made a lot of like big changes and taken a leap of faith. But with that and heights, like going skydiving, like people will go do that, as an experiential thing. I can't do that either. I shouldn't say I can't. I just haven't yet. But who knows? Maybe I'll have you come out and slowly take me out into the ocean and Emily can video it.
That would be rad.
If we were to do it in Hawaii or somewhere where you can like see down, I'd be fine. But like, what is that? Do you know what that is? Like, obviously fear of the unknown, but is there like an actual thing that you see with people where it's like a specific thing that you can put finger on it?
Usually it's around like they're afraid of drowning maybe or losing control. And with a lot of people, it's fear of sharks.
Yeah, I'm scared something's going to latch onto me.
So is that more what it is? Because you can't see?
I can't see what's under there. That's what I think it is. I mean, I guess I wouldn't really know until I'm out there.
Right. So yeah, that fear of like shark or something like that coming up and getting you, that's a lot of people's fear. And it was funny because when it rains, we have to find other stuff to do. So we do like beach cleanups. We even do some field trips. We went to the Dana Point Marine Institute.
Oh, nice.
And someone asked about that, and the lady giving us the tour, like, gave us some statistics, and you're more likely to die from a vending machine falling on you than by shark attack.
A vending machine falling on you.
Yes.
Okay, so pretty slim.
Yeah, and then we get in the car every day if we took those statistics.
Oh my God, I know. Yeah.
But we don't think about that. Like
No.
I tell people, you already did the most dangerous part of the activity, and that was drive here in the car.
Mm-hmm. True. Well, maybe I just need you in my ear for like a month straight, and I'll try it.
Yeah, or go in the exposure, like where it's like you go maybe to like calf deep water and you just put your feet in and you just try. And then maybe another time you go to like your knees, and then we sit on a board. Maybe we go where it's flat.
Mm-hmm. I can get in like up to my waist.
Oh, that's pretty good.
And then I'm like, yep, no. And then turn around and head back in.
Have you started with paddleboarding?
I love paddleboarding. I love kayaking, like love it. I love being on the water, but never actually like sat on a board or anything like that. Plus, and a lot of people are sure wondering this too, don't you need to be a strong swimmer to surf or?
Yes and no. So when we're running the groups, we have a specific ratio we stick to. I don't like doing more than 3 people for one instructor. A lot of times it averages down to 2 students for one instructor. And we pick beaches that are less exposed. So, for example, like if you walked out to the Newport Pier on the average day, that's a pretty sheltered place. And you could drive 5 or 10 minutes north and it's double or triple the size. Mm-hmm. So we do try to find those more sheltered breaks. Doheny's another good one, just where the waves are really gentle and, it's not as exposed to the swells.
Yeah. Yeah, those swells this morning, they were pretty nuts. I would never go out there. Couldn't give me $1 million to do it this morning. I'm sure you would have been out there in a second. What's the biggest wave you've, ridden?
Yeah.
Surfed?
So I've ridden waves in a lot of different places. I mean, believe it or not, the biggest wave I've caught is probably in Newport Beach at the Wedge.
Okay.
I don't ride the Wedge anymore. In my 20s when I was like newly sober, like I just needed that adrenaline all the time. Would want to go out there and, bodyboard and just like pull into barrels. And it was weird. After like I got closer to 30, I started thinking like, if I get hurt, I can't work. So
yeah,
I'm a little more choosy about like what I do now. I'm not as reckless as I was at 24.
Yeah. And so the biggest wave, how big was it? I think
it was about 15 to 20 feet.
Oh, wow. That's a big wave.
Yeah.
And have you surfed in other parts of the world?
Yeah.
What's your favorite place?
I like Nicaragua.
Okay.
Costa Rica.
I have a group of people that were just there and they said that's going to be the spot yearly.
Oh, yeah.
That the waves are just ridiculous. And then it's like a tropical rainforest, right? So it's warm.
Yeah. It's almost like if you took Hawaii and like Baja, Mexico, and put it in a blender. That's what it feels like when you're there.
Nice.
Very laid back.
Yeah. What did surfing give you that you needed in recovery?
Gave me escape, to be honest. Like that adrenaline, like seeking behavior. Like there was still some things that like, I think you need to go out and experience that stuff still. Just because you get sober doesn't mean you don't want intensity in your life. I think it's just, for me, it was like that, like safe, healthy space. And like, if I wanted to disconnect or get away from things, that's what surfing was for me. If things were hard, like I didn't have to talk about stuff. I didn't have to answer to anybody. I could just go out and surf and spend hours in the water and, not really deal with problems that couldn't be solved right away and just like let them be and forget about it.
Yeah. Because you just need to be present just in the moment when you're out there, right?
Right. And even if you don't want to, it happens automatically. I think that's what is so cool about surfing.
Mm-hmm. How does somebody get involved? So you do surf classes. You have a surf school too. And where is that based out of?
So since I've moved to Central California, we have 2 locations. The team down here is still running. We run around Newport Beach and Dana Point. And then I run the operation up in Morro Bay, Cayucas area.
Okay. And so how do people find you?
You can find us online or on Instagram. If you just Google Serene Waters. We teach surf lessons, which is different than what we do with the rehabs. It's more of a one-on-one thing. And when you're really looking to learn, that's what is best. Big classes or group things aren't always the best to really get it. It's just a good way to kind of get the experience.
Okay. And if someone's newly sober and they want to talk to you or get involved in this, how can they contact you?
So if you go to serenewatersrecovery.com, my email address is up there. I believe my phone number is there. You can just shoot me a text or an email. That's the best way to get in contact.
Okay. And what would you tell somebody out there that's struggling right now?
If you were struggling right now, I would just say give the 12-step community a shot. I would just say trust the people there. I know it's hard to trust people. You don't have to walk in and necessarily confess your soul or do the steps or do all this stuff right away. I would just say go there and just find someone you trust, because sometimes that one person can really light the way for you.
Yeah, perfectly said. Well, thank you. I'm going to have to take you up on this. Emily, you're coming with me. We're going to do this.
Yes, we're going to have to do that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Jenny.
You're welcome. All right, you guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.